Hello guys, welcome to another broadcast from the holster shop. Got my mic on, let me get the power plugged in from my phone. I appreciate you coming and spending this evening with me. I know there's a lot of other stuff going on tonight, and I'm grateful that you took the time to come and watch this broadcast. So, thank you. If you've just joined in and you're a Kydex holster maker, please post the name of your company in the comments. I recognize Eric Powell from Powell Kydex. Hello, Eric. Glad you made it. So please post the name of your company in the comments so I can keep track of who is who. Tonight the topic is taking the leap. And it's not just about the initial jump into business, but at each stage of business there's a new leap facing you or new leaps facing you, and deciding what they are and when and how to go over them. Hello, Skylar. Yes, if you're here watching the feed, please like the feed, please share the feed on your page, and grab your, pull up a text message, send a link to some other holster maker who's not aware of this, and invite him to come check it out. Hello, Todd. Hi, Chris. Hi, Andy. Hello, Ben. Ben, you are very welcome to have a good reason to not watch the debate. So some of you guys saw a photograph I published earlier today on Instagram of these guys. And I ran a couple colors, a couple tests. This is the Filster single magazine carrier inside the waistband. Sorry, I got cardboard boxes under my bench. I've been playing with a new forming method. And this is not vacuum. There's no vacuum involved. It's just one big clamp. And so I've been playing around with what's called die molding or matched mold forming, where you actually make a male and a female, and they're machined so that they have the thickness of the Kydex sheet you plan to use as an offset between the two of them when they're nested. And then you heat up your sheet, you lay it on the mold, you close the top plate into it and clamp it down. And you get really super crisp inside corners. The edges are beautiful. The trade-off is you have to have your tolerances on the mold really, really dialed, because if any part of the mold plates don't actually close all the way, you don't get full definition. Hey, Jared Gomez. Yeah, you sure are a leap taker. It's exciting to watch the stuff. Some of those hammerheads you're making are beautiful. I don't need a big hammerhead for Kydex, but they're lovely. So, when it comes to taking the leap, there are a few basic things to consider before you take the leap. And I'm going to deal with initially just the first leap, which is going into business. Here are a couple key questions that should get asked before you go into business. First, what am I going to sell? Who am I going to sell to? How am I going to sell? And then on the back end, how am I going to make what I sell, or where am I going to get what I sell? Because very few holster shops, including mine, manufacture everything they make. I don't make my own belt loops. I don't make my own eyelets. I don't make my own screws. There's lots of things I have to source. I don't make my own plastic. There's a lot of things I have to source, so I'm not only making and selling, I'm also getting. And so I have to have a plan for where I'm going to get the stuff I need, because in any industry, if you run out of supplies, you're out of product. And I know we've had, in the holster industry, at various times, problems with certain colors being out of stock, or Kydex just not being available for a little while, or eyelets being out of stock. Like, there are lots of different moving parts and things we're dependent on in order to run our businesses, and you can really get stuck if you don't have a second or a third backup plan. Hello, Tom Kelly. Ben Miller, it's not outrageously expensive. If you're going to tool up a multi-cavity metal mold, yeah, it's pretty expensive. I'm able to prototype it myself pretty cheaply in my own shop, because my prototype molds are not metal, and I'm making them myself, so I'm just paying my machine myself for time. Not coming through here very well, says a couple people. I'm going to keep on keeping on. Facebook is showing my connection as acceptable. So if the feed's giving you problems, try hopping off and hopping back on. Build to order does hurt me sometimes. Free Wi-Fi. All you can see is my shirt. Can you not see my face? Pretty sure my face is in the shot. So, once you're in business, what's the next leap? The next leap might be your first gun store, your first wholesale account. The next leap might be getting your website up and running. The next leap might be investing in vacuum forming. The next leap might be getting into CNC. The next leap might be hiring your first employee. That's my leap currently. He starts in about 2 weeks. It's happening. Really excited about it. Whatever the next leap is, it's easy, my tendency is, to play it very safe and not leap until I have every little detail accounted for and I'm completely certain that the math comes out totally straight, that I'm sure that the risk is minimized in the leap. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. So if you're considering taking a leap, first write it down. Like, what is the actual leap? What am I really considering doing? If I'm getting into, like, an example would be getting into vacuum forming. And this is a leap that a lot of guys have already gotten over, so it's good to be able to look at it from both sides, pre-leap and post-leap. The leap would be, what am I actually going to have to do to make this change? What do I need to get? I need a pump, I need a heat source, maybe a different heat source, maybe the same one I already have, maybe, a heat press. I need a vacuum former. I'm going to need to buy plastic maybe in different sizes and different pre-cuts in order to be able to do this. I might need to get into split molds. I might need a strip heater. What are all the things I'm actually going to need to make that leap? Because you can't leap halfway over the ditch. You either have to get to the other side or you don't make it. And so having the details worked out enough so you can actually list off the things that are included in the leap. If you're getting into CNC, what are you doing for software? What machine are you going to use? Where are you going to buy your plastic or your mold material from? Do you have cutters figured out? Do you have the electrical supply you need in your shop? If not, who's going to install it and when? What size machine are you looking for? How much space do you have? How much capital do you have? Are you going to have to finance? All those things go into actually looking at that leap and deciding when is the right time to take the leap. So here are a couple things that can affect when to take the leap. Your rich great uncle dies and leaves you $100,000. Great time to take a leap. Buy a CNC. It'll be fun. More realistically, holster sales are going well, but you can see on the horizon quickly approaching a point at which you're no longer able to keep up. And you're going to have to overcome that by either cutting back on what you sell so that sales don't rise to that point, bringing in somebody else to help you do the work, or automating or upgrading your equipment for some part of the process so you can do that part faster. Okay, Richard Perry says, I made the leap 2 weeks ago, closed my eyes and jumped. I don't necessarily recommend closing your eyes and jumping because we're in business and business has tons of data involved. So here's some of the data that helps you anticipate when the leap is coming. What are my average weekly sales now versus 2 months ago versus 10 months ago? What are my cost of materials? Have they changed? Have prices gone up on material? How's my website doing? Which items are actually selling hot? About to leap into owning a business, got a holster design down in a local shop that's interested in carrying the product. Ben, that's exciting. There are some issues in going straight to gun store. I'll touch on those a little bit later. I'm not going to discourage you from doing that, but there are some unique things to consider there that are different from going direct to consumer through web store as your initial launch. Back to the data. How much capital do I have on hand? What's actually in the bank account? How much am I paying myself? If I had to make a bunch of improvements in my process and I had more downtime, well, if I had to take time away from production to improve my process, how much money do I have on hand to float the business if my income dips while I'm making that improvement? If I have to have an employee, how much will the employee cost? How many hours a week am I hoping to get him in here? And then how long will it really be before he can actually turn a profit? How much training? How much material am I going to lose? How many holsters is he going to junk? Those things are involved in looking at when the edge is approaching you. Because if you're in business, you're in motion. Things are coming towards you. You're not standing still. We're never standing still in business. Clark says his big leap was getting the bigger CNC recently. And some leaps are a bigger distance, but of a known type, like going from a small CNC to a big CNC, going from a small vacuum former to a large vacuum former, going from 2 employees to 8 employees. Those are leaps, and they're big, but they're leaps in a known field. They're leaps that involve changes that you already understand, you've already experienced. So I'd be very comfortable going from my current CNC mill to a bigger CNC mill, or from my current CNC router to a larger CNC router. That would be a leap in that it would be a cost, but I'm confident that the amount of downtime on the back end once I made that change would be pretty minimal, and I could quickly get that machine up and running and producing saleable parts for me, making money. So when you see something approaching that you're going to have to leap over, either you can't keep up or you have a unique opportunity. Say you go take a training class, you meet somebody who has the ability to really bring you some exposure and some business. They see your product and they love it. And they want to get on board. They either want to become a spokesman, they want to get on board with your brand, they want to advertise for you, or they offer to advertise for you. And you're looking at that thinking, boy, if I can get this person using my stuff, liking my stuff, promoting my stuff, sales are going to explode. Can I handle that demand? If I can't, what do I have to do to be able to handle that demand? Or you stop for a cup of coffee somewhere and you happen to bump into an executive from Gander Mountain or some big chain store, and you guys get talking and he wants to see your product, and you end up, sort of serendipity finding an opportunity to get a whole bunch of new sales. That's going to require a leap, because I don't know a single one-man shop that is well prepared to make a jump of, to make a leap of an additional 1,000 units a month with their existing process. If you've got time to make an extra 1,000 units a month and you aren't doing it, something is wrong. So making a big leap in terms of your production volume, your distribution network, say you get a trial period in one store of a chain and they love it and decide to push you to 20 stores with the same volume per store as your first one. So you've got 20 times the volume coming in the next purchase order. If that happens, you're going to have to leap. And you can anticipate those leaps. Sometimes you can get money up front. I know it's pretty common in the machining world, if you're bidding on a big job, a long-term contract, maybe 2, 3, 5 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of material and parts, that you can basically get some money up front to get the equipment. You can pay into the leap with the money that's coming from the project. In holster sales, though, we often can't do that. And if you're doing direct-to-consumer sales through a web store, you certainly can't do it. Any equipment leaps have to be financed out of your pocket. Wesley Slusser says his CNC is on Turtle Express. I think I've shipped with them before. It's pretty frustrating. So, Brett Pittman mentioned expectations versus reality. And this is huge. It came up several videos ago in the discussion about learning curve, because every leap, every new process, every new piece of equipment involves an unknown amount of learning time needed. I'm just getting ready to install a reflector frame around the upper heating elements on my Sibe automation vacuum former. I'm trying to get a little more even heat out to the edges, and so Andrew for Prez, Ahmad, that's a job I would never want. I'm trying to get a little more even heat out toward the edges, so I'm building a polished sheet metal reflector that's going to go around the heating element and come down and just about touch the frame, so that more of that infrared heat bounces back and stays inside the frame and hits the plastic. Well, once I install that, my previous time and temperature recipe, out the window, totally gone. I'm going to have to start from scratch and ruin some more plastic because I've changed the way the machine works. So making a leap on sales and advertising don't happen overnight when you have no clue or resources on who can make it happen. Yeah, If you don't have a clear plan for how you're going to fulfill the sales and how you're going to actually get the people, get the sales, I think it's easy to think that if you just throw money at advertising, that you will automatically get business. And that's not the way it works. Some advertising is more valuable than others. I know that there are different opinions among holster makers on the value of what we would call influencer marketing. And this is really Facebook and Instagram, but really on Instagram, where you get your gear into the hands of somebody who has a popular channel. This is also on YouTube. So Instagram and YouTube, you get your gear into the hands of somebody who's got a lot of subscribers, a lot of viewers. They have the ability to give you a lot of exposure and hopefully drive sales. And you may have to give free gear for that. You may have to pay some cash for that, or maybe a friend of yours and it's just a favor. Great. But you don't know going in what you're going to get out for sure. You can't quantify those things ahead of time. And so when it comes to advertising, I'm very reluctant to spend advertising dollars until I've tried something in that direction with time only, no dollars involved, to see if it starts to seem like there's some return there. So what I mean by that is you can do an awful lot on Instagram just through careful engagement of certain key hashtags. And it's not just like get on the Glock hashtag and find every person who's not a holster maker who posts a picture of their Glock and say, hey, great picture by my holster. But you can actually just start conversations sincerely. Like, oh man, a 19, I love 19s, that's what I carry. Or if it's something a little more obscure, say you carry a 30S, find other guys who are carrying 30Ss and talk to them on their posts about how much you like the same pistol and you carry it. And, you can actually engage there and get interest without it being spammy and like just buy my stuff, sales stuff. And you may find that really does generate some sales for you. Wesley Slusser, you got to spend money to make money. Yeah, you have to spend something to make money. You either it's a combination of time, energy, and money. Okay? If you sit down and sort of relax, not really working too hard, you spend half an hour sort of browsing around on Instagram, you like a few posts, you comment on a couple things, you're spending time, you're not spending very much energy, and you're not spending any money, except that your time sort of is money because you could be producing something, you could be making money with that time. If you sit down for 20 minutes on Instagram and you are going fast, and you are liking posts, you are adding hashtags to your stuff, you are making comments on other people's stuff, you're going in there with the express purpose of engaging heavily for a short window of time. Maybe you're on the bus, maybe you're on a plane, maybe you're on your lunch break at your day job, whatever it is, you got a window of time, you're going to get in there and really go for it. Trying to actually find out where the customers you want are talking and paying attention is invaluable for advertising, because I could spend $100,000 advertising in the wrong place and get almost no sales from it. Like an example would be if I spent a bunch of money on billboards. I live not far from Indianapolis, and there's a big highway loop, 465 around Indy, tons of billboards. I could spend money putting my advertising on billboards on the 465 loop. I don't know how much that costs. It's a lot more than I currently spend on advertising, which is currently, aside from my website maintenance costs, I currently spend $0 on advertising. I don't do any Google AdWords. I don't do any Facebook paid advertisements. I don't pay any money to any Instagram pages to pump my stuff. I don't spend cash out on advertising. Not that I'm opposed to it. I just don't do any of that currently. But if I spend a lot of money on billboards, there's no guarantee I'm going to see return from that. And it's hard to track where I'm actually getting the return from. One of the really nice things about certain kinds of internet marketing, click-through ads, Facebook ads, Google AdWords, one of the really big advantages to those is you can quantify the conversion rate. You can actually see for X number of dollars I spent on this ad, how many clicks through did I get, and then how many of those clicks through actually turned into sales. And then I can net, look at, okay, I spent $100, I made $600 in sales. If I just consider that $100 part of the cost of doing business on those holster orders, I know how much I'm still making on them, and maybe next time I'll throw $175 at it and see if the ratio stays the same. Maybe if I get above a certain amount, the ratio starts to diminish. I get diminishing returns, or maybe I get increasing returns. I break into a new level of exposure with a certain amount of money. All those are possibilities. You have to experiment with them. It depends where you are, who you're marketing to, how clearly you understand who your end consumers are. But once you have that information, once you have that data, then you can leap intelligently. Blind leaping is a terrible way to do business. We're not just throwing ideas at the wall in the dark, hoping to hit something good. So if you do 60 different kinds of holsters, what's my conversion rates? Chad, this is an area where I am not doing a good job in my business because I don't spend a lot of time looking at the back end of my website. I keep track of all my sales, I print out my shipping labels, I fulfill my orders on time, but I don't spend a lot of time doing analytics. And I probably should. If I were spending money on Google AdWords or Facebook paid ads, and I was trying to track the ROI of specific advertising expenses, I would be spending more time back there. But right now, it's pretty much just word of mouth. I don't even push that many sales hooks through social media. I don't often try to refer people to my website through my Facebook page, with the exception of my Swift Press. If you are a holster maker and you're interested in getting into non-membrane forming, I have Swift Press in stock. They're right over there. Big stack of Swift Presses. I had one guy order in the middle of this afternoon. I got his press out in the mail today still. So if you order a Swift Press through my website, henryholsters.com/products/Swift Press, usually I can get it out same day or certainly next day, shipped UPS ground. Clark says, I'm currently at 1.2% conversion rate. And conversion rates are not, when we talk about conversion rates, we could be talking about conversion rates in terms of people who actually landed at a certain specific product page or who clicked through from a certain paid ad you put in a particular place. Yeah, quick Swift Press plug. Got to put it in there, Chris Williamson. Because I'm a businessman. I'm selling something that I think provides a good value in the market. I enjoy making it. I think it produces a good product. You can make good holsters with it. I want to be able to sell it. I want to continue to make it. If you're thinking about getting into that kind of vacuum forming, I think it's a great option that you should seriously consider. So, yeah, that's my Swift Press plug. When you look at taking the leap, though, having a plan for how you're going to follow it up on the back end, and leaps are in a direction. And so you could be leaping in the direction of taking on a big wholesale account. That's a leap in a particular direction in terms of your business trajectory, what you're going to sell, the kind of volume you're going to move, what your pricing is going to be like on those items, and then what your delivery and payment schedule is going to be like. I know these are a couple of the common payment structures that you see when you get into wholesaling. One of them is consignment, and I do not like consignment sales generally. Consignment sales involve you putting out gear at no upfront cost to the gun store or distributor who's carrying it, and they only pay you after they get paid. This is not to say that consignment can't be a good way to get your foot in the door or that it can't be a very viable business model, but because it's open-ended and you're eating all the costs up front, especially if you're small, especially if you don't have cash reserves or a lot of cash flow, consignment sales are a double-edged sword. You can put a lot of effort into making gear and putting it out there and then not see return on it for 1 to 6 months if it doesn't move. Another one is net terms, and this is pretty common. The industry standard in manufacturing is net 30. Some businesses offer a discount if you pay within net 10. And that basically means if I sell holsters to a gun shop at net 30, they have, from the time I deliver the holsters, they have 30 days to give me payment, which means I have to cover the cost of my materials and my labor for an additional 30 days after I finish the product before I get paid. Again, if you're a very small business and you don't have cash reserves to sustain the business and you don't have a stable cash flow, net 30 terms can be a problem. If you're buying supplies and you're on the other end, net 30 terms can be great because you can buy, say you have a big order come in and you need $3,000 worth of Cryptech. This has happened to me. Okay? If I'm on net 30 terms, I can buy $3,000 worth of Cryptech, get it delivered, make all the product, turn it around and put it out before I have to pay for the materials, which makes total sense. What is the norm for retail markup? John Keller asks. So standard wholesale A pricing is usually 30 to 40% off retail. A lot of wholesalers won't look seriously at anything that's less than a 30% discount below MSRP. They won't consider carrying it. I don't know any retailers that are excited about buying holsters at 10% under direct pricing, because that's just not enough margin for it to be worth it for them to clear for them to clear display space for it and put it on their shelf. So it's very common for wholesale discounts to be in the 25 to 40% range. If you're trying to do less than that, you're probably not going to get much interest from gun stores. But you can negotiate that if you're willing to do consignment in exchange for you keeping a larger percent of the sales. That's a little more attractive to a gun store, because they're not having to put out money up front to put the inventory on their shelves. They only have to make a little space for it, and then they get a cut of 10 or 15% once the product sells. So you have to know your local gun stores, build good relationships there, talk to those guys, talk to the manager, and get a feel for what they want. When it's major distribution, where you're dealing with a chain or you're dealing with multiple locations, and it is strictly business-to-business relationship, there's no personal, it's business, then a 10% on consignment deal is probably not going to cut it, and you don't want to be putting out large volumes of product on consignment that way anyway, generally. But you sometimes will have an opportunity to take a leap that is moderately risky, or a leap that is extremely risky. And into local gun shops at wholesale pricing in order to get their brand name out versus direct-to-customer sales via online walk-in. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you how to price your holsters, but I think a lot of holster makers do a poor job of anticipating their future market opportunities when they establish holster pricing. I think if you're selling an inside the waistband holster for $40 or $45, that you make it very, very difficult for yourself, to legitimately pursue wholesaling, because there's just not enough margin left there. Everybody knows that there's an inverse balance between volume of sales and cost with profit margin. So you can make up your money in margin per item, or you can make up your money in volume of sales. So if I have the opportunity to push an extra 5,000 units a month, but it's going to require me to give a discount that drops my margin to only 10% over my cost, that may or may not work. But if it's 5,000 units, that's a lot of gross sales. That's a large dollar amount. And so a 10% profit on 5,000 units might be more than I would make at a 30% margin on 100 units or 200 or 500 units. And so you have to look at what your shop can actually handle. If you have the volume to do 5,000 units and you can still make money, it's going to be efficient enough to produce them that you can absorb the extra 5,000 units and you can make money at that reduced margin, go for it. If you're a small shop and an extra 200 units a month would require you to down 3 or 4 energy drinks a night and stay up till 4 a.m. and then have to go back into your day job at 8 or 9 to make that extra 200 units, it's not worth it for you to give a steep discount to gain work that's going to burn you to get done. So when you look at the leap, when you're thinking about taking on new business, a new business marketing opportunity, a new business sales opportunity, a new employee, or new equipment, get a second opinion. Talk to somebody else who's in business in a different field. Talk to somebody else who has experience in manufacturing, who has experience in retail sales, and just buy them lunch and ask for their perspective. Say, and you can't come into that kind of meeting well, this is what I feel like. Business is not only about feelings. Feelings are involved. If you have an opportunity and your gut reaction is, I don't think so. If your gut says no, I'd be very hesitant to pursue a business opportunity where my gut feel was, okay? And I've had business discussions where after talking about it, taking a day or two away and talking to myself about it, my gut reaction is, you know what? That's not going to be good. I'm not even going to pursue it. And you may find, Clark Trost says that raising prices made his life busier. Sometimes that's a very real thing in the market. Perceived value and who you're selling to, sometimes if you're below a certain price point, the perception is that the product is cheap, that it's not worth it. Ben, it just comes around to customer expectations. I'm very comfortable in the $70 to $85 per holster range. That's where all my stuff is priced. I don't currently make anything that's under $70. There's nothing. I mean, aside from magazine carriers, obviously. I don't make any gun holsters under $70. I know a lot of holster companies do make most or all of their stuff at under that price point. I think there's room in the market for both kinds of things. I think my holsters still offer a very good value at that price point. But some people will look at it and go, oh, a $35 holster must be garbage. And they'll never consider buying. You may find that playing with your prices a little bit does make a difference, but generally, we as makers are much more sensitive to the cost of our items than the consumers actually are. Okay? Really, if a guy's willing to not purchase the holster that has all the features he really wants and settle for a holster that only has some of the features he wants in order to save $5, then he really didn't care too much about the features. And so I wouldn't be too price sensitive if your product is good. If your product is not quite there yet, then yeah, pricing yourself in the $75 or $80 range is ridiculous, and you shouldn't do it. You don't command that kind of price. You don't offer value at that price point. But if you offer a really good product, the consistency is very high, the retention feels good, the attachment hardware is all solid and secure, there are no sharp edges, it's all nicely polished, it's nicely packaged, you have a good overall package going, and you provide value at that price, go for it. Charge $75 or $80. There's room in the market for that. Yeah, so Clark has now got a light-bearing inside the waistband holster for over $80, and he's selling them. That's exciting. I sell a decent number of my Glock with X300 Ultra inside the waistband appendix holsters, and they're the same thing. Yeah, that's an $85 holster. Yeah, they sell. I could probably sell more of them if I did a little more Instagram influencer marketing and if I did maybe some Google AdWords and some Facebook paid ads. But it's not the case that there's a certain price point above which is the Sahara Desert and there are no sales to be found there. Like, there are a lot of holster companies charging $100 for a holster. I used to go to gun shows here in Indianapolis, and there was a particular company that had one holster they charged $150 for, or like $125 for a hybrid. And I knew that crossbreed holsters were going all day for $50 less than that, or close to that, But this guy was making a lot of holster sales at the gun show. I didn't understand it, and I wasn't his customer. I was, at that price point, I was not interested. But there were people buying his stuff. So I can't say that a price is wrong, but I will say if you price yourself too low, you will close doors on wholesale pricing because you simply can't afford to give a discount that makes the product attractive for a retailer. If they can't make a decent markup on it, then it's not worth their time or money to carry it. That's just reality. It's not a question of your holster being good or bad, but if you can't offer it to them at a price that makes sense for them to get a decent profit on it, then they're not going to sell it. And it would be foolish of you to expect them to sell your product at a tiny margin. And so if you think you want to pursue wholesale, think very carefully about your pricing structure so that you have room built in to be able to offer that discount and not be hurting yourself. Because if you're only making $8 or $10 per holster, that's a really hard place to make money at. You'd have to go super fast in order to make any money at that price. So back to making the leap. If you're thinking about making the leap, whatever the next leap is for you, write it down, think clearly about what's involved, and then find somebody else who's taken that leap and ask them to double check you. Like, what am I forgetting? What other things am I going to need? Have I missed anything major? Like, if I'm going to get my first employee, I'm talking to my CPA and saying, what other things have I not thought of in terms of taxes and withholding and all this stuff? What else do I need to know to make sure I make as educated a decision as possible? I need all the relevant information, but I also don't want to spend 6 months agonizing about it. Get the data, look at the data, understand the information, check your gut, get a second opinion, and then go for it or don't. But don't spend 6 months like agonizing over whether or not you should take the leap, because you're wasting tons of time and energy not accomplishing anything by doing that. So taking the leap can be good. Not taking the leap can be good. If you leap too far, you don't have a landing plan, or you just bite off way more than you can chew, I've seen holster brands and other companies really, really hurt their brand, and in some cases go out of business because they took a poorly calculated leap that they were not prepared to handle, and they just ended up in the meat grinder on the other end. They were so far underwater on sales, they blew their lead time, they started getting tons of angry customers, or they rushed and they put out a bad product and they got bad reviews, they had warranties, they had failures. Okay? If that happens, that leap can ruin your company. However much time and energy you've put into building a stable brand, having a nice clean product, having a good website, that can all get trashed if you leap at the wrong time. So making a leap is not a suicide commitment. Like, I'm going to go for this, or die trying. Sometimes if you have the opportunity to take a leap, you may look at it and say, man, that is too much. I can't do that right now. But that doesn't necessarily mean that door is completely closed. Here's an example. Brandon Krotak called me up months ago, and he was thinking about getting into gun stores. And he had conversations with a gun store, and they wanted a pretty wide range of like 15 or 20 gun models to start. To put them on the shelf, they wanted 15 or 20 gun models, many of which he didn't even have molds for yet. That's not a good leap to take, in my estimation. After talking to him about what his sales volume was, what his equipment was like, what his current time per holster and cost of materials was like, it didn't seem like trying to go wide right away just to get in the door there was going to be a safe leap for him to take. But that doesn't mean that he can't still talk to the gun store owner and say, look, I'm still really interested in getting my product in here. I want to upgrade my production method and offer an even better product than I currently do. I do want to do business with you, but I'm not in a position to do all that all at once. Can we look at maybe doing Glocks, M&Ps, and XDS, 2 colors each, and have me put 20 holsters in the shop and just see how those go? You always have the opportunity to counterpunch. If there's a leap you're looking at, you have the opportunity to affect the leap. Sometimes you can affect it a lot, sometimes you can affect it only a little bit, maybe even not at all. Maybe really it's their way or the highway, the leap has to be 100% or not at all. But if you want to go in that direction, you can often find a way to get stepping stones there and not have to make the whole leap all at once. If you currently foam press and you want to get into vacuum forming, you may be able to get the stuff you need, the equipment you want, gradually. Because if you buy a heat press now, you've been using a toaster oven, you're foam pressing. If you buy a heat press now, guess what? You can use it instantly. And you can speed up your heating times, increase your consistency, and start banking more money on that little part of the leap right away. It would not make sense to buy the vacuum former first, spend all your money on it, and then start saving up for the pump, and then start saving up for the heat press last. Right? Just makes sense. The things you need to get, oftentimes there's a logic, a rhyme or reason to the order, and you can prioritize the things that will make you more money right away, the things that will cost you the least upfront, or maybe you know where you want to be in 6 months and you think you'll have an opportunity to get a great deal on something if you can space that purchase out over 6 months. Clark just got an awesome deal on a Cam Master router because he was headed in a certain direction and then had an opportunity to grab one used locally at a steal of a price. But like, if I had the opportunity to get a great deal on a $100,000 piece of equipment that I would really like, but I don't currently have the sales to justify, if that opportunity presents itself to me and I've got to make a decision this week, spend $100,000 or miss the opportunity forever, somebody else is going to buy that equipment, I can't do it. It's not an option. I don't have time. I don't have capital to make a leap that large in that short a time frame with anything approximating an educated look and a safety, a safe estimation of the risk. But as you take more leaps, you'll start to also get more of a feel. I took a leap on my first small CNC. That was a leap. That was thousands of dollars. It was by far the biggest single expense on a piece of equipment I'd ever had. And it was a calculated leap. It paid off very quickly. And I was excited. I was hungry for more. I started looking at other equipment. I started pricing out vertical machining centers. And then a year later, I took a much larger leap. When I started building my own vacuum formers, I was buying materials, I was experimenting, I was throwing some prototypes away and building some new ones. And then at a certain point, I decided to make a leap. I'd looked at Belovac and Formac and Cybe Automation and HydroPlus. I'd looked at a bunch of different companies that made integrated non-membrane vacuum formers, and I decided that now was the right time to take the leap. I had enough OEM work coming down the pike that I knew I could make good use of that equipment pretty quickly, that it was not going to sit for a year and only get run one day a month. So when it comes to making a leap, be honest with yourself. Am I ready for this? What is it going to cost me? I'm going to have to take a lot of extra time away from my family. Am I going to have to sleep less? Am I going to have to quit one of my part-time jobs if you have part-time jobs? How much of my available cash is this really going to suck up? What happens if I don't get the sales right away? Do I have any contingency plans? How long can I afford to troubleshoot this process before I start running out of money? If I make a whole bunch of new wholesale sales, say they're net 30, when do I actually get paid? Can I float this quantity until then? Those are all the questions you have to answer before you can really take the leap, especially if you have a wife and kids. If you have other people depending on you, you can't just take the leap and say, well, if all else fails, I'll eat ramen and sleep on somebody else's couch for a month, because you got other expenses. If you have a car loan, if you got a home mortgage, and you're thinking about taking on a whole bunch of new financial responsibility, you have to be very sober about that. But if you can do it, if you can pull it off, if you look at that and say, okay, here's what it costs, here is a sober estimation of what the learning curve is going to be like. I expect it's going to take 6 weeks to get this thing really humming in my shop. But after that, I'm going to have an extra 150 sales a month of this item at this discount. So I'm looking at this kind of margin. If you can look at that leap and it makes sense, if you only ever try to build your business with very small incremental advances, you will miss enormous opportunities. But if you're willing to leap when you should and hold back when it makes sense, if you're willing to take risks, you have the opportunity to seize really interesting leaps that present themselves. And you can benefit tremendously from that. Like 2 years ago, I wasn't selling molds to anybody. I wasn't selling vacuum formers to anybody. Okay? If I had not made those calculated leaps to invest in the equipment that I did, a whole bunch of the products that I currently sell, I wouldn't have been able to even make, let alone sell. And so you can, I get excited about the opportunity to look at business leaps forward, new products, new markets, new partnerships, new sales channels. That's exciting stuff. And it can really open doors for your business, but you have to have a plan for how you approach it. I know some guys are very much on the gut side. Some guys are very much on the data. They want to crunch numbers. They want to see the details. Whatever is your, whatever is your groove, wherever you feel, wherever you can do that well. If you're totally a gut guy, you should still discipline yourself to sometimes look at data. If you're a data guy, even if the numbers look good, if your gut says no, don't only trust the numbers. Do pay attention to your gut. This business is complicated stuff. There's a lot of intangibles. If you're thinking about going into business with somebody, like I've had conversations on the phone with somebody who's interested in sourcing OEM product from me, and after a 2-hour phone call, I got off the phone. I'm like, man, that guy gives me a bad vibe. No longer interested. Even if on paper the leap looks good. Okay? I don't have time to do business with bad people. That's kind of a weird way to say it, but if I know before I go in that somebody is really just a jerk and that they're going to be a constant hassle to deal with, that they constantly have unrealistic expectations, that they create problems and expect me to fix them, I don't have time for drama. I'm too busy making stuff. I'm too busy being a dad and a husband to take on a leap that I know is going to bring tons of drama. I don't want drama. I do want excitement. I do want business growth. I do want development. I do want employees. I do want new equipment. I do want sales. I do want a better website. I do want happy customers. There are lots of things I do want. Drama is not one of them. And so if I get a feel that like this next leap's going to involve a lot of drama, or I have the opportunity to get involved in an internet debate that stirs up a lot of drama, I'm not going to do it. Okay? Even if the drama could bring significant exposure to my brand, I'm not interested in drama marketing. Some companies love it. I think it's a two-edged sword. I think the opportunity for downside is really big there because you can really come off looking like a tool. And I would rather do a little less business with a little more humility and keep my integrity and know that I did not go out and use my mouth and my brand to try to bash people who have never done anything bad to me. I'm often amazed by the amount of bashing I see between holster companies on social media, and especially when I see guys who make very little stuff bashing guys who make tons of stuff. That does not mean that I think that volume of sales is the guarantee that what you make is good and that you run a good business. That's not the case at all. But, have a little humility. I don't badmouth other companies. I might disagree with products, and I might be very vocal about certain design decisions they made and features their products have that I think are bad, or if they conduct business poorly, which is maybe they don't honor their warranty, or they, if they do bad business, I'm not opposed to calling bad business. But there's very little upside to spending my time and energy bashing other companies. It doesn't build me up. It doesn't open positive doors for me. And so I had said if you were thinking about watching the debate tonight and instead you came here and watched this, I appreciate your time. I hope I've provided some value and some learning, some useful knowledge for you. Tonight was not real big on a lot of hard data. It's mostly just about how to approach taking a leap, what things to think through before you take it, and then when you decide, yes, I'm going for it, you better be ready to give 110% on the backside. You take that leap, hit the ground running, and you charge until you've gotten that next thing up to speed, that the momentum is humming, and then you can look at what the next leap is going to be. So I'm really excited to be getting an employee in. That is huge for me. It's a part-time thing to start, but that's where we're going, and I hope to be able to build on it and 2016 has been a tremendously exciting year for me. I am going to SHOT Show in 2017. Hopefully I don't catch the plague. If you're going to be at SHOT Show and you've ever watched my Facebook Live broadcasts, I would love to meet you. I don't know exactly what my travel plans are. Everything's still kind of up in the air. It's going to be one of those, travel light, live out of a car, probably kind of things. But I look forward to the opportunity in the next year to knock on a whole bunch of new doors, to bring new products to market, to redesign, to improve my current products, to improve my process. Being able to do things like this where I'm doing matched form molding, that opens all kinds of doors for me because there are certain kinds of products that can be made very effectively that way that are very difficult to do well with vacuum forming. So I'm totally excited about it. I appreciate you spending your time with me. Thank you for hanging out and watching the live feed. I'll be doing another one later this week. So keep an eye on my Instagram and Facebook company pages for the announcement of when that's going to be. Thank you very much for stopping by. As usual, I will go through all the comments and answer any questions I missed. As is typical, at a certain point my comments froze up. So I haven't seen any recent questions. I apologize if I missed a question you posted. I will try to answer it in a following Facebook Live broadcast, or I will respond in text to your comment to get you the answer you want. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great night.